Hi, my name is Trevor Klee, and this is the GMAT critical reasoning process, specifically as it relates to boldfaced. So boldfaced are the sort of ones that are, say, the parts of this argument, play which of the following roles, or the bolded parts of this argument play which of the following roles. And so this is actually a great example in which the critical reasoning process that I've been explaining in the last couple videos is particularly useful. So let's go over the critical reasoning process first, and then we'll go into some examples. So my overall strategy on the critical reasoning process is I always understand the argument first, and then I try to pick the right answer. So let's get really specific about how we understand the argument, because these bold-faced questions pretty much are just understanding the argument. That's like 99% of them. So process is I always find the conclusion, which is going to be an opinion or prediction or plan, and I put therefore in front of it. It's something that, so we have to be specific here, something that the rest of the argument supports. And then here I also have to find the reasoning and put because in front of it, and then understand how the reasoning leads to the conclusion. Now, what's important here about bold-faced questions is, first of all, they tend to be more careful than the rest of the GMAT about putting like your keywords here, so you actually know when things are conclusion and things are reasoning, like since or because. Another thing is for both conclusions and reasonings, in the more difficult like questions, there are always more than one. And the reason why that is it just makes things more difficult. So they'll say, this is one person's argument, it's his conclusion, this is his reasoning, this is another person's argument, this is his conclusion, his reasoning. And then, they'll often even like toss in intermediate conclusions, which are like, we say, here's our reasoning, it leads to a conclusion, and then that conclusion leads to another conclusion. That's very common. So we have to be on the lookout for stuff like that, like intermediate conclusions. More specifically, just making sure we keep track of everyone's argument. We know, whose reasoning belongs to which conclusion, that sort of thing. Step 3, we can actually skip. And these boldface, because we don't need to identify any gaps, we just need to identify parts of the argument. And then finally, in step 4, reading the question, finding the correct answer choice. All right, cool. So let's do this. So this is a real GMAT question. It's 700 plus. So I'm going to go through this. By the way, if you want to go through a bunch of critical reasoning questions with me, then please check out my guide to critical reasoning, which is on gumroad.com/Trevor Klee. Put a link in the description. All right. So let's go through this. This is a 700 plus question, so it's pretty tricky. So let's read it first. Country X's recent stock trading scandal should not diminish investors' confidence in the country's stock market. For one thing, the discovery of the scandal confirms that Country X has a strong regulatory system, as the following considerations show. In any market, some fraudulent activity is inevitable. Stock market is well regulated. Any significant stock trading fraud in it will likely be discovered. It deters potential perpetrators and facilitates the improvement in regulatory processes. So what is this boldface? We only have one boldface here. This is the conclusion. And so the rest of the argument supports this. And I don't even need to understand the rest of the argument because they so helpfully provided this sort of language, as the following considerations show. So the rest of the argument supports this, right? The rest of the considerations show that this is true. So that's a conclusion. A conclusion is something that the rest of the argument supports. So let's look. The portion in boldface plays which of the following role? It is the argument's only conclusion. Seems pretty good. So let's actually keep that one for now. It is a conclusion for which the argument provides support and which itself is used to support the argument's main conclusion. No, it doesn't support anything, right? It is the argument's main conclusion. It is supported by another explicitly stated conclusion for which the support is provided. I'm not sure. It is an assumption for which no explicit support is provided. No. It is a compound statement containing both the argument's main conclusion and assumption used to support that conclusion. Maybe. All right, so let's figure out, are there any other conclusions in here? We've got following considerations show. We've got, let's see, so we've got countries X recent stock trading scandal should not diminish investors' confidence in the country's stock market. For one thing, the discovery of the scandal confirms that, that's actually we have another conclusion there. So let's actually go back here. So we have a should statement, which I missed on my first read through. So we have a should statement. And when we say countries X recent stock trading scandal should not diminish investors' confidence in the country's stock market, that's actually a conclusion in itself. And then it says, for one thing, the discovery of the scandal confirms that country X has a strong regulatory system. Okay, so actually, this, I missed that the first time, this supports that. Supports why it should not diminish the investor's confidence, because it has a strong regulatory system. So correct answer here is actually B. Okay. Almost missed that the first time around. Cool. Let's go on to our next one. All right. So our next one, we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to track our reasoning and our conclusion. Hopefully we'll be a little more careful. So historian Newton developed mathematical concepts and techniques that are fundamental to modern calculus. Leibniz developed closely analogous concepts and techniques. It has traditionally been thought that these discoveries were independent. Researchers, however, just recently discovered notes of Leibniz's that discuss one of Newton's books on mathematics. Several scholars have argued that since the book includes a presentation of Newton's calculus concepts and techniques, and since the notes were written before Leibniz's own development of calculus concepts and techniques, it is virtually certain that the traditional view is false. More cautious conclusion than this is called for, however. Leibniz's notes are limited to early sections of Newton's book, sections that precede the ones in which Newton's calculus concepts and techniques are presented. So here we've got reasoning and conclusion again. So several scholars have argued that, what's going on there? All right, several scholars have argued that since, so that's a reasoning word, right? Since reasoning. All right, since the book includes a presentation of Newton's calculus concepts and techniques, and since the notes were written before Leibniz's own development, it is virtually certain that the traditional view is false. So here we've got another conclusion, right? It's conclusion. It's certain that, ... So that seems pretty clear. We've got reasoning. Since this, therefore, the view is false, right? That's a pretty, it's pretty traditional, because, therefore, we've got an opinion here, false, right? And then we've got another conclusion, a more cautious conclusion than this is called for, right? So that's another conclusion. This is the historian's conclusion. He says, because Leibniz's notes, right? Because. So that's reasoning. Because Leibniz's votes are limited to early sections of Newton's book. All right. Cool. So I've got reasoning and I've got conclusion. And then I've got the historian's conclusion and the historian's reasoning. So In the historian's reasoning, the two portions in boldface play which of the following roles? The first is a claim that the historian rejects. So I don't know if the historian rejects these claims. So let's say the second is a position that claim has been used to support. So let's keep that for now. The first is evidence that has been used to support a conclusion about which the historian expressed reservations. The second is that conclusion. That's also pretty good. The first provides evidence in support of a position that the historian defends. No, definitely not. The first and the second each provide evidence in support of a position that the historian defends. Definitely not. Then the first has been used in support of a position that the historian rejects. The second is a conclusion that the historian draws from that position. No. So let's see. So our big thing here, is it a claim that the historian rejects, or is it just evidence? So it says the book includes a presentation of Newton's calculus concepts and techniques. So, and these are notes that discuss one of Newton's books on mathematics. So I wouldn't say he disagrees that they include a presentation of Newton's concept and techniques. He doesn't deny that claim or reject that claim. So I'd cross that out. I'd say it's just evidence. He agrees with the evidence, but he disagrees with the reasoning from the evidence. All right, cool. So this is critical reasoning, bold-faced. So we're looking for our conclusion and then our reasoning. And then, we just pretty much do that throughout the paragraph and we get our right answer as long as we're being careful. All right, cool. So that's pretty much that. Again, my name is Trevor Klee. If you want to follow along with me on more of these critical reasoning, please check out my Gumroad page, gumroad.com/Trevor Klee. Also, like and subscribe, and I'll be putting out more videos. Thanks.